Hello, this is Pastor Michael Nabors from Second Baptist Church and the Evanston North Shore NAACP. And we are live at Nabors Speak on this Monday. I am in Princeton, New Jersey with my family, and we will soon be going out to get on the road and head back home to Evanston. But it's certainly good to be here, and I hope that this is working and that it is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Hi, Malika. I see your icon in the right-hand corner. So I am slated to talk about gun violence and what happened in Chicago last weekend when there were over 50 shootings, many of them resulting in death. Malika asked me a number of questions at the end of our interview on last week, and I'd like to try to continue that. I had a moment to think. Maybe the question is, what should churches do about gun violence? What have they done? How are churches addressing this issue, both at the local level and at the national level as well? And I'd like to say and give my response that I think that churches can do a number of things, but the first thing that comes to mind for me is actually what churches have always supposed to have done in times of crisis, in times of inconvenience and trouble. Churches are supposed to lead by example. Churches are supposed to take a stand. Churches are supposed to be led by the gospel. Of course, now I see that the first question that is being asked comes to us again from Malika, and that is, how do we get the youth who are out here killing to see their own value and the value of other lives? That's a great question, Malika, and I think that has to do, again, by our setting an example. We have to value our own lives, and our children have to be able to see that in us. By valuing our own lives, that means that we have an appreciation for life. As a minister, I think about all of those scriptures that talk about life. One scripture, I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. There's just no doubt we are supposed to value life to the degree where we do not take the lives of others. And I think that's important. And again, I think that the church and people of faith can play a primary role in that. Of course, you know, the Bible teaches us, especially from the New Testament in Jesus, about how important it is for us to have love. Jesus says the two great commandments are to love God and then to love our neighbor as ourselves. But he goes on to say that we're even responsible for loving our enemy. Love your enemy. Do good to those who despitefully use you. Never does Jesus say, take matters into your own hands, and when somebody does something to you or your loved ones, then you have a right to turn around and do the same thing. We know that's from the Old Testament. We know that the Old Testament says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And of course, it would go on, you know, to say a head for a head and a life for a life. So, you know, people of faith, and especially Christians, we know that if that continues, then the world will not exist in the way that God ordained for it to exist, in the way that logically it's supposed to exist, with love for one another. So I think that we are also supposed to value, you know, the sacredness of life. We, you know, it is the greatest gift that God has given us, this gift of life. One of the great preachers in my tradition, Gardner Taylor, called it the dash between birth and death, this thing called life. We're given the promise of 70 years, you know, 70 years. But even if we live to be 80 or 90 or 100, that is just such a short breath of air when it comes to this thing called existence. When we think about Earth being around for billions of years, when we think about human life being around for over I guess hundreds of thousands of years, when you stop and think about the Neanderthal man and Homo sapiens and all of that. So I think that we have to value life, and we have to value it in a way that is just a real amazing blessing that it is. And when we do that, we will take away this idea about, I think, feeling like we have a right to have a gun and to defend ourselves. Now, I think everybody that owns a gun, of course, you know what that means is guns are tools of violence. There's no getting around it. You know, guns are violent. When guns shoot, they intend to hurt, to maim, to kill. Whether you are hunting, whether you have a gun in self-defense, whether you are a criminal and have a gun and are seeking to do damage or hurt to somebody, it's violent. And so we don't live our lives regarding violence. We live our lives another way, and that is the way of love. So I don't have an easy answer. I know that there are different opinions out there about gun ownership, and that's why there's such a debate in our nation now about gun control. Everybody knows that America has the #1 problem when it comes to gun violence of all of the countries that are in the world, and I think that we have to have a national dialogue, a sit down and a debate. And of course, the question now is, how does one explain to families that have lost their family members to gun violence by the hands of another black man that black on black crime is not real? I think that's a good question, but when you think about the term or the phrase black on black crime, I think that's always been misused. I think that it was put out there by the media. It was put out there by people that I think that don't have an understanding or value of black community and black life. We've never heard the term used, white on white crime. We've never heard yellow on yellow crime. We only use that kind of term as it relates to black on black crime. Well, you know, black on black crime is just a crime. It's just like any other crime. And I think that disproportionately, you know, crime occurs as far as gun violence is concerned in communities where people are of color and also where people are poor. So when we think about gun violence and all of those proponents, you know, that argue the First Amendment, I have a right to bear my arms, I have a right, you know, to have a gun and all of that. When you look at demographics and statistics when it comes to gun violence, then we're going to see that the victims of gun violence disproportionately are people of color and also people that are very poor. So I think it's important for us to understand that. And again, Malika, I appreciate this opportunity to share these words and to talk about the reality of gun violence. It's not easy. Again, I think that churches have to play a lead. I think that it's important for us to be in the vanguard discussing these issues and even having our members come out and have a dialogue, maybe through a workshop or through a seminar on gun violence. Because the reality is, I'm sure, that people who are sitting in pews in most churches around the nation probably have their own CWs and all of that. So, yeah, we have to go to the polls to change gun laws. In the meantime, what do? I think that we have to use our common sense. I think we have to use our faith. I think we have to continue, as you said in the first question, teach about the value of life. And in teaching about the value of life, that means that we have to show the value of life as people of faith. We have to show that life is precious, that life is loving. We have to care for one another. We have to be there for one another. We have to immerse ourselves in the community. And in those difficult areas, in those difficult neighborhoods, on those difficult neighborhoods where our children are, we have to go there and show our love for them and show our love for the sacredness of humanity that God has given us. So again, thank you very much, Malika. I hope this is working out. This is the first time that it's worked this way. I'm about to get on the road and travel back to our home in Evanston with my wife and with my kids. So God bless you all. It's been wonderful. Thank you, Malika, so much for this opportunity. Take care and look forward to talking to you all again next Monday. Blessings.